back to last week, things that really stood out. I guess to me, the biggest game of the night, the biggest statement of the night was Middleburg beating Beachside.
Yeah, big time. You and I were talking about that. I thought Beachside was going to comfortably pull away in that one, but man alive, did not happen. Middleburg, the biggest win, I think, in Ryan Wolf's coaching tenure, 37-36 on a blocked PAT in overtime.
Yeah.
So talk about a way to win it if you're Middleburg. And um, we've talked about Middleburg quite a bit in the stretch here, where, and we'll get to them later in the show as well, but they played the very lean front side of the schedule, and it's happened since Ryan Wolf's been there. You play that lean side, you build that schedule up, you're 5-0 and you're 6-0, and then boom, starts going down when you hit the difficult games. But you're probably not going to win a district championship. Ponte Vedra's that win last week really opened the door for Ponte Vedra. But you want to talk about a statement win. That's a win that can not only help them this year, took them from 8th in the playoff RPI up to in that 5th, 6th region, but I think can help them going forward too, have them believing that they can beat the Beachsides and the Fleming Islands, those guys of the world.
I know we're going to talk about Oakleaf in a moment. They're in a district championship game tonight against Mandarin, but I thought their win over Ed White last week was also a pretty good statement.
Yeah, crazy, wild game, 44-41, back and forth. Fareed Coleman, 5 touchdown runs in that game. Unbelievable. Jack McKissick, the touchdown winner to Trace Burney. The back of the end zone with about 40 seconds left in that game. Ed White had a chance to win that game, but the Hail Mary pass at the end in the end zone was caught and then dropped, not be able to be held on to. But great finish for Oakleaf, and that offense is kind of what we expected to see from them from week 1 onward. And they just haven't had that this season, that consistency. So I know they're down right now against Mandarin 7-0, but a huge win for Oakleaf coming into tonight's game.
Let's kind of set the scene for you. We mentioned 3 district championship games were 6:30 kicks. They were all taking place at Duval County schools tonight. All right, you have a situation with Ed White and Riverside. Winner of that game is a district champion. You have Mandarin Oakleaf. Winner of that game is a district champion. And Rains and Yulee. Winner of that game is a district champion. I think this is what the FHSAA wants. Friday before Halloween, you're getting all of this action tonight to decide district championships.
Yeah, and we're looking at taking a live look at the corral right now, where Mandarin is up, I believe, 7-0 on a Bryson Wright, shocking Bryson Wright
Yeah.
pick 6 return in that game. So expect that game to be good and defensive in that game. I predicted Oakleaf to win 32-28, but good defenses in this game. And I don't know. I picked Oakleaf to win. I could certainly see Mandarin winning. Mandarin won the regular season game last year, lost in the playoffs to Oakleaf. So we'll see what happens, but certainly a good start for the Mandarin Mustangs at the corral.
You know, Oakleaf made a deep run in the playoffs last year, got to the final 8 of their classification. Yet I get the feeling that they are certainly the overwhelming underdog tonight, and this would be more of a statement win for Oakleaf than it certainly would be for Mandarin.
Yeah, and, last year, Mandarin dominated in this regular season game. Defense, Drake Stubbs was really, really strong in that game. I reference this play time and again on this show or on our varsity podcast. Drake Stubbs comes out of the blue, out of the frame after Oakleaf had a long run, would have gone for a touchdown. Drake Stubbs came in at the last second, stripped the ball out with an unbelievable, just a strong defensive play. Mandarin recovered, went on to score on that drive, and they won that game. But, of course, the rematch in the playoffs, and I think Oakleaf and Mandarin, this will be the first of 2 that we see this year between these 2 teams. But Oakleaf did win that playoff game last year, actually at Mandarin, so kind of a little bit of redemption here for Mandarin if they can hold off Oakleaf tonight.
I want to get to your Super 10 rankings in a moment, but this game in particular, both of these teams are going to the playoffs. It probably goes without saying, but let's say it anyway. Even though both teams are going to the playoffs, you want to be the district champion going into the playoffs.
Of course, and that, on paper should guarantee you a home playoff game. If you are, we'll talk about the playoffs here in a little bit, but yeah, district champion gets you a spot in the playoffs, and then best case scenario, get you a home playoff game. Right. So that is that's good, especially when you're talking even if I've seen an 8 seed district champion host a number 1 seed non-district champion. So yeah, those district championships carry a lot of weight.
And in the Mandarin Oakleaf case, you want the higher seed to simply avoid Gainesville-Buchholz as long as possible.
Yeah, and Oakleaf last year avoided Buchholz until the regional final, the 3rd round of the playoffs, lost in a close game. But that was as far as Oakleaf has ever been in its program history. One other time in the regional finals. But a really good season last year for Christopher Foy, and really almost you launched that second half of that season with that really, really good gritty win against Mandarin in that playoff opener.
Buchholz last night, by the way, 50-16 winners over Bartram Trail, what kicked off Week 10 locally. Bartram, a pretty decent team. Buchholz is just a machine this year.
Yeah, Buchholz, 4 straight state semifinal appearances for the Bobcats. They've had coaching changes, graduations, and man, they are really, really one of those perennial programs like a Bartram Trail has been in terms of getting to the playoffs, having success when you get there. You know, and Buchholz still hasn't played for that championship in that stretch. They're running into the Lakelands of the world, the Aquinas. So you got to be good once you get there, but Buchholz has been extremely consistent in getting to that Final Four.
Let's update the Super 10 rankings as we enter Week 10 of the high school football season. Again, it's been pretty consistent week after week. The top teams have certainly separated themselves, but a couple of these top teams going at it tonight. You see there, Mandarin and Oakleaf.
Yeah, Mandarin Oakleaf, that's our game of the week, obviously, and only one real change in our rankings this week, and that's Ponte Vedra moving in to number 9 and taking that spot previously occupied by Beachside. Of course, they had the IMG Junior National team tonight, and that win by Middleburg really opened the door for Ponte Vedra to sneak away and win a district championship. So they did drop from number 1 to 2 in the region, even though they did win last week. But you got to like what Ponte Vedra and Steve Price have done. So only 2 losses this season, 1 to Nice, 1 to Beachside, but they've won 4 straight. And a tough game tonight, though. Ed White at number 10, still Columbia and Bradford 8 and 7, where they've been for a while. Nice and Oakleaf at 6 and 5. Mandarin, Bowles, Rains, and St. Aug. And I had some issues with leaving Rains at 2 and keeping St. Aug at 1 because Rains has just been absolutely mauling teams this year. And yes, of course, the schedule's been well documented in terms of how not difficult it is compared to like a St. Augustine schedule. But man, Rains has just massacred teams. 51-3 last week over Creekside. And St. Aug struggled last week against a depleted Bartram Trail team that is now 2 and 7. And if it loses next week to Ribault, which I don't think it will, that will take I can't remember what year, maybe 2008, for the worst season in Bartram Trail history with just 2 wins. Difficult season for the Bears.
Well, I think, you know, you and I have had this talk all year between Rains and St. Augustine. It's who do we think is the better team versus who has the better resume.
Yeah, man.
There's no doubt St. Augustine has the better resume.
Yeah.
They beat Bowles, they beat Lake City Columbia, they beat, you know, you name it. Nice, they have great wins. Rains's best win is, to no offense of their own, you know, Trinity Christian or Lake Mary or Creekside. I guess Madison County might be up there as well, but clearly St. Aug's got the best resume.
And as we talk about that, Mandarin right up the gut. Touchdown run by the Mustangs, and they're going to be up 14-0, pinned in this PAT. And if you wanted a quick start, you're Toby Bullock and the guys over there on the staff at Mandarin, you get one. Bryson Wright pick 6, and now a Shonquez Foster touchdown run, and you are up 13-0 and about to be up 14-0, pinned in this PAT. You got Oakleaf on the ropes here in the first half, and if you're Oakleaf, you put up 44 last week, but you don't like to be in that same spot as you were against Bowles in the first half of that previous game of the week that we had, where things just spiraled quickly for Oakleaf, and you end up losing 38-6. You hope it's not the start of that if you're an Oakleaf fan. It's 14-0 right now, Mandarin over the Knights in the Varsity 4 game of the week.
Let's do a Superior Fence and Rail where quality matters scoreboard update. This is one of 3 district championship games that kicked off at 6:30. We mentioned Mandarin 14-0 over Oakleaf. We'll certainly keep you updated there. It's already a blowout at the Graveyard. You mentioned Rains.
Yeah.
Rains and Yulee is for a district championship tonight. Look, no offense to Yulee, but they're running into a buzzsaw. Rains up 28-0.
Well, I mean, you knew it was going to be that way. just it was going to be that way. I mean, Range is just Range this year and routing everybody. But Yulee last week, I think I don't know if you were maybe looking ahead a little bit to this game, knowing it was going to be a district championship game and the stakes in this week's game. But Flagler Palm Coast took you apart last week in a running clock game. 42-14, and that was kind of Palm Coast, a bigger school. They've had a disappointing year by their standards, but they beat Yulee savagely last year. Running clock game was never close. So if you're Yulee, you've had a 7-0 start, and you're waltzing into a scenario where you're going to be losing back-to-back games, and you could go into the playoffs on a 3-game slide. Certainly not what you expected if you're Kyle Dougherty, but you were 2-8 last year. You're 9-3 the year before, so you've certainly got things back on track in Nassau County, but you run into 2 difficult tests. Your schedule's been pretty lean up into the last few weeks where you Palm Coast and then Rains. Yeah, probably a little bit of a reality check for Yulee.
Yeah, no question about it. Rains up big in the graveyard. Looks like they're well on their way to a district championship. The other one going on is one of those weird 3-team districts. Riverside has had, to their standards, an awful year.
Yeah.
Yet all is forgotten if they win tonight. They are trailing early 28-14. Competitive ball game, but Ed White up 28-14 in that district title game.
In this one last year was our game of the week last year, and Ed White was really, really young last year. And Riverside, you got Tayshawn Gelsey, you've got Miles Kendrick. You really felt like you should have won this game. And if I remember correctly, it was 21-20. Ed White with a walk-off touchdown run by freshman running back Rontrez Lloyd, and they've kind of continued. This you knew was going to be a really good year for Ed White, and last year you didn't see it coming as much as you did now, but Riverside has just fallen off the cliff, and this is their last game of the year. So if you lose, you're still technically on the playoff bubble entering this week. I think you're 9th in the region. Yeah. You got to win. This is your last time out, and this is your time to get into the playoffs and kind of push those 7 losses behind you. You get to the playoffs at 3-7, you're still on the dance floor. But been a forgettable year for Antoine Nicholas and the Generals by their standards.
A couple other district championship scenarios that'll start at 7:30. Bradford and Santa Fe. I don't know a ton about Santa Fe other than they're a little bit of a surprise this year. Bradford a big favorite in that game. If Bradford wins, they're the outright district champion. If Santa Fe pulls the upset, that causes a situation where there's 3 teams that basically share the district championship, and they'd have to go to the rankings.
Yeah, if you have that 3-team tie and it can't be broken by, say there's teams and you got a 3-team tie and they've all beaten each other. Well, they can't be broken like that. But if one team has beaten has a better record against the other 2 teams, that team wins it. I don't think Bradford's going to lose this game. Santa Fe is traditionally been a solid team. They've had really, really lean times. They've gotten back on track. I don't expect Bradford to have much of a sweat in this game. I think Jamie Rogers and the Tornadoes are barreling towards that potential clash with Bowles in the state semifinals. You don't have Newberry there anymore, kind of staring you down like they did last year. Remember, Bradford was 10-2 last year, both losses to Newberry, and you don't have that playoff giant in there anymore. Maybe the Villages is that kind of quasi-giant this year, but I still think Bradford is a step ahead of everybody in the region.
And then I believe, Providence University Christian is the other one tonight?
Another one there where 2 years ago, Providence beat University Christian for a district championship.
I'll never forget it.
Crazy.
Doing the radio show for almost 2 decades, you kind of know what to expect on Friday nights. I did a couple of searches for different scoreboards on that one. That was a huge win for Providence 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was shooting that game, and I left in the 4th quarter, and I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, this is a better game than I thought. UC was just not playing UC football, and I got back to the station, and I could not believe when I looked on Twitter later when I got back and said, wow, Mason Williams and Providence took down UC in the state play, or in the basically a district championship game, and won the district. UC last year, though, got a little bit of redemption, beat them twice last year. So I think UC, even though they entered this game on a 2-game losing streak, I think UC is, Providence lost players to transfer during the season. Right. They went from Providence to Yulee, Preston McCarty, the quarterback. So I think UC, even though they've lost to True North and they lost to Hawthorne, those are pretty good teams. So I think UC will be battle-tested and ready for this one.
All right, games that aren't necessarily district championship games but do have playoff implications. We'll begin with Paxson, 14-6. They lead Ribault. Well, that'd be a nice win for Paxson. The Sunshine State program against, obviously, an FHSAA program. Right now, Paxson leads that game 14-6. It's scoreless between Fletcher and First Coast. Fletcher's an interesting one. We had Seatric Faison on the program last week.
International with Seatric Faison
live from the Turks and Caicos last week. So they would have been in the playoffs 7 days ago.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're the 11 or 12 spot in that classification.
It's crazy how things have changed, and Fletcher was off last week, so you kind of stayed status quo while the other teams passed you who played. So they're another team that you really have got to, when we talk about, in previous iterations of the playoffs, district champ, district runner-up, going to the playoffs. These last 2 weeks of the season were essentially meaningless. Why don't we go out to the Oakleaf game, Mandarin, real quick. They're starting to get a little bit of a drive, going down 14-0 as we see Jack McKissick and company trying to get something going. Fareed Coleman, 5 touchdown runs last week, trying to get moving. Our writer out there said Fareed's been a little bit, seems like he's playing a little bit banged up, and he's a little ginger getting up after that snap. So a lot of wear and tear on him from that 44-41 game last week. He's jogging off the field, but Oakleaf putting together a little bit of a drive right here at the Crowd. Do not want to go into halftime facing a 14-0 deficit against a good Mandarin football team. So still wait to see that Oakleaf team from last week, the 44-41 game. Jack McKissick and company off to a slow start, but they are a nice little drive going here. See if they can turn something in. McKissick's already thrown a a pass that went the opposite direction in the hands of Bryson Wright. So we'll see if Fareed Coleman can get back out on that field and contribute to that ground game. He's looked a little bit banged up in this district championship game.
Again, this is an Oakleaf team that outside of the Bowls game has been one of the best teams in the area the entire year. And even the Bowls game, they got into the Bowls red zone 4 different times.
Yeah.
I believe turned the ball over or lost the ball on downs all 4 times. And the score was not really as indicative of how close a game that was. So the fact that Mandarin jumps on them 14-0, pretty slow start for Oakleaf, but certainly a team that's capable of coming back.
Yeah, you dropped 44 on Ed White, and Ed White's defense is a little suspect when, their Ed White's 2 losses. You gave up 52 to Merritt Island and 44 to Oakleaf. So Oakleaf took advantage of a very generous Ed White defense. Like a big catch down there, and the Knights are driving down the field. Nice grab by Oakleaf down there, and something going for the Knights.
Trying to cut this Mandarin lead in half. Again, Mandarin got up early 14-0. Oakleaf trying to calm the waters. Quickly, some other scores. Jackson and Baldwin 6 apiece. Big game for Baldwin. They're not going to win that district, but they need another win or 2 to cement themselves in the playoffs. But clearly they would be in if the playoffs started today.
Yeah, and good season for Don Velvet and the Indians. Their 2 losses have been pretty crazy. We talk about teams scored a lot in a loss. Ed White scored 49 and 41 in losses. Baldwin scored 49 and 48?
Yeah,
49?
Scored 97 points in their 2 losses.
2 losses, just unbelievable, unreal. They lost 51-48 to Baker County, and then they lost 73-49 to Bowles. Just unbelievable kind of totals in those games. But Baldwin has looked really, really good.
You put 49 on Bowles, that's absolutely no joke. By the way, Rains up now 35-0 on Yulee in the second quarter. Trinity Christian's another one. They're playing Kipbold City tonight. Certainly they're going to win that game. But Verlin-Dormany, you talk about a guy that is used to winning state championships, used to making deep playoff runs. Very young team this year. Started, 1-4?
Yeah.
Boy, some of the wins. They beat Tallahassee Lincoln last week. They won a district title 2 weeks ago. Verlin-Dormany, a great coaching job for Trinity this year.
Yeah, we'll get into him and kind of his body of work and what Trinity has faced this season later in the show. But when you're Verlin-Dormany and Trinity Christian, and I know I said this to you last week, last year before Trinity started, I went out and talked to Verlin at camp, and I said, hey, Verlin, nice run here by Oakleaf again, trying to bang on the door, and you got Fareed Coleman back in that game. A little spring in his step, so you hope it's just cramps. But Verlin-Dormany said, hey, Justin, this is the youngest team I've ever had. I don't even have a senior with an offer at this point. This was last year. So Trinity Christian knew they were going to be young, knew they were going to have growing pains, and a lot of those guys came back to Trinity. They're still underclassmen. So you play a challenging schedule, which they did, and the Ed Whites and the Bowleses and those kind of guys, the Columbias, you're going to take your lumps. But what it entails is you getting back to it and proving that those lumps you take early on prepare you for this second stretch, because as you mentioned, they won a district championship. Granted, not in the most difficult district. They're going to button up a perfect district record tonight against Kitbold City. They're up 28-0 in the first half in that game. But credit to Verlin-Dormany. Last year wasn't their best year. You know what? They played in the state semifinals last year in an off year for Trinity Christian. This shows how high the standards are out there.
We'll see if Oakleaf can pay this drive off with a score. Again, down 14-0, but certainly knocking on the doorstep here. I believe they have a goal-to-go situation as a runner. Ooh, good penetration by Mandarin there, really pushing that offensive line back. We'll see if Oakleaf is able to cap it in. All right, so playoffs begin in 3 weeks.
Yep.
The regular season ends next Friday. Broad overview. We talk about 5 district championship games tonight. And again, most of our audience, I would think that you're watching Friday Night Lights, understands a majority of what's going to happen in the playoffs. 1A to 7A, different classifications. 32 teams get in from around the state.
Yep.
4 regions, 8 teams per region, and Region 1 is where most of our local teams are going to be in each of the classifications.
Yeah, we'll go to this full screen after this Oakleaf snap, and here we go right now. Here's how the playoff field is set. We'll look at this Oakleaf snap and then drop back in to that. Jack McKissick under center, tight formation here, bunch formation for the Knights as they try and push that pile forward. Freed Coleman in the backfield, number 2, coming off a 5-touchdown game for Oakleaf last week, and it would be huge if the Knights can get in here.
This is going to be an Oakleaf tush push here? Is that what we're doing?
It could be with that formation we just saw. Bunch tight and close and knocking on the door of the goal line here. And this is where Mandarin's season ended last year at home with a missed kick at the very end of their playoff game. So Jack McKissick and company talking in the backfield. We're going to see a quarterback sneak, or we're going to see a handoff.
Let's see, Snell, yep, pushing him in. Is he in?
Looks like he is across the goal line. Great tush push.
There you go.
From the Oakleaf Knights, and we have got, I don't know.
No signal. Yeah,
there we go. There's the touchdown. Great one. Great drive to respond there for Oakleaf. I don't know if the tush push flag was thrown, but Oakleaf looks like they answer that. Or was there a flag? Are they waving the flag off?
Got the touchdown signal from the ref. Wide receiver for Oakleaf is trying to explain to him it's a touchdown. We'll see if they reciprocate that with the signal.
So we saw touchdown signaled, but also a flag, and seems to be some commotion.
Usually a situation like that, maybe the defense lined up off sides. I don't really see a flag, though.
They picked the flag up. So, wow, looks like they're marching them back.
Oh, wow.
Taking the points off the board. So the McKissick touchdown is nullified as Oakleaf looks like they were flagged for something, probably a procedure penalty.
Christopher Foy cannot be happy about that. That eliminates any quarterback sneak idea right now. If you're back on the 6-yard line.
Go from knocking on the door at the 1, now you're at the 6 against a good Mandarin defense. And that takes the wind out of your sails a little bit. 1-score game, and you push your way in there from the 1-yard line, and now Oakleaf is back out there. And you got to, unless, was that a touchdown? And they call that, is that a PAT now?
I guess there was a touchdown.
Okay, so.
No, I'm right there with you. I did not see any flag. It looked like they were marching them back. You wouldn't take a field goal, I wouldn't think. Let's get some clarification here. Referees really have it under control out there at the corral, Justin, doing a fantastic job communicating.
And my writer who was out there at the game texted me, said, refs are off to a tough start tonight.
It looks like it. It looks like it.
In this game. So as we wait to get a ruling in this game on what has occurred, I'm not quite sure what has occurred, Hacker.
No, I'm not either. Let's get.
As we look at the scoreboard, it's
14-0.
Nothing. Still no change on that scoreboard right now.
Midway through the second quarter. Well, we'll keep you updated on that. We'll get some clarification on what actually just went down. But we know regardless of what happened, Mandarin has the lead midway through the second quarter. All right, how the playoffs work. 32 teams in each classification get in. 4 different regions in each class. with 8 teams, obviously. And in the Jacksonville, Northeast Florida area, you want to look at Region 1. That is where an overwhelming majority of our teams will be put.
Yeah, it's 32. So 1A through 7A, as you kind of touched off. There's 4 regions in each classification. 8 teams per region qualify for the playoffs. Those 4 district champs, kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier. You want to be a district champ because that's your guaranteed spot into the playoffs. Otherwise, you're point watching. So you get the top seeds in the playoffs. And that Mandarin Oakleaf game will determine that district champ. The loser of that game will still make the playoffs. They're in via points. Let's just talk about that Mandarin Oakleaf game. So Mandarin Oakleaf will get that district champion spot, and then the loser of that game will still go to the playoffs as kind of an at-large team. So you're picking the playoff field. You got 32 teams in each classification. You just got to get on the dance floor and work. And how those playoffs are set. It used to be district champs and district runners-up went. They changed that several years ago to where it's now the district champs and then the 4 at-large teams. And this is why weeks 10 and 11 have become so very important since the FHSA redid the playoff system. The week 11 used to be an absolute throwaway week. It was a week where you set your starters if you were going to the playoffs, or you played your seniors if that was going to be your last game. And it's become so important now because a team like Fletcher, we'll look at the playoff scenarios in a little bit, but a team like Fletcher, they need to win out. They have got to win in week 11 to get into the playoffs, and that's not just the only situation. A team like Jackson, if you win out, you could possibly climb up to a number 7 seed in the playoffs. So week 11, week 10, even if you're not playing in a district championship game this week is important for those bubble teams. You cannot understate how weeks 10 and 11, because you're crunching numbers if you know the metrics, how to use them, which not a lot of people do. But if the easiest way in is to win, and Fletcher is in a must-win situation. Jackson is in a very tough situation. You got to win. You don't want to get locked up with bowls in the first round. You'd like to avoid them. So it is so important. You cannot really diminish week 10 and week 11 anymore, because these are must-wins for a lot of teams. We talk about teams that really are in that do-or-die situation. Fletcher, last week, they went from 8th. They were in the playoffs last week if the playoffs started last week, but they were off, and they dropped from a guaranteed spot at number 8 to 10th right now. So they are on the outside looking in. Fleming Island, of course, they're playing Middleburg in a big one tonight. They are on the outside of the playoff bubble looking in. You got to get into that 8th spot. You talked about Riverside Hacker. They're in the 9th spot. They would certainly move up if they were to beat Ed White tonight. Doesn't look like that is happening. But that's their only way to the playoffs, is to win that district. Menendez, another one. You got to win. You've got to win and finish out strong. They're playing Matanzas tonight. You need that win. Matanzas would be a great strength of schedule win. Can move you up into that 8th spot. Jackson, thanks to Gadsden County, they were declared ineligible for the playoffs. So Gadsden County won a 2-team district. They are ranked lower than lower than Jackson, so they would have taken a playoff spot away from Jackson. But Gadsden County is ineligible. Jackson right now sitting in that 8th and final spot. You win out, and then you could possibly climb up to even a 7th. Don't think you can get in 6th at this point, but in 8th place, you could climb up to a 7th if you win out. And then NFEI has been a great story this season. They are right on that bubble cut line too. They need to win out to firm up that spot. Could possibly get into that 7th spot, but you don't want to lose out and fall out of that number 8 spot and drop out of the playoffs entirely. So a lot on the line for these teams and a whole lot more.
Yeah, so we'll give you a scoreboard update here in just a moment, but let's go through the rankings if the playoffs began today. And again, we only have 2 weeks to go in the regular season. Tonight, next Friday, we have the Hurricane Week, which only a game or 2 is actually scheduled, and then the playoffs begin on November the 14th. All right, in 7A Region 1, the only local team that would be in is Creekside. And we're actually going to have Sean McIntyre, the head coach of Creekside. He's going to join us here in the 8 o'clock hour on Friday Night Lights, presented by Farah and Farah. Creekside, as a district champion, would be in as the 8th seed, the only team in our area from 7A.
Yeah, that's you don't have a lot of teams that size, in Class 7A. I mean, Sandalwood, Atlantic Coast, Creekside, and only one of those guys is going to the postseason, and that is Creekside. Even though you're 4-5 right now, you could probably finish 4-6. Got a tough one against Ponte Vedra next week, so you're going to go into the playoffs probably with a losing record, but you're in the playoffs nonetheless.
We talk about 6A. We mentioned Oakleaf and Mandarin, the game we're following tonight, the Channel 4 game of the week. Right now, Mandarin would be the 3. and they would take on Orlando Evans in round 1. You would have a 4-5 matchup between Oakleaf and Nice. Problem there for the 4-5 is the winner would get Buchholz in the second round, which again, you want to avoid that. That's why tonight's game between Mandarin and Oakleaf is vital to avoid Buchholz as long as possible.
Yeah, as long as possible. Oakleaf did that. They avoided Buchholz until the third round of the playoffs. Did have a little bit of update on that Mandarin-Oakleaf sequence we saw at the end. A holding on the McKissick touchdown run, wiped that out, and the field goal was blocked.
Oh, my gosh.
You talk about a big-time swing there. You go from 14-7 to 14-3 to 14 nothing.
I watch a lot of football, Justin. You do as well. You call holding on a quarterback sneak? I mean, come on now.
Oh, man.
I'm not. If you're the refs, how do you call holding on a 1-yard quarterback plunge?
Not good.
All right, let's go to 5A. If the playoffs started today, interesting. You'd have Beachside as a 5. Again, great year for Beachside. Tough loss last week. They'd still be in as a 5. Ponte Vedra would be in as the 2 seed, and Middleburg would be in right now as the 6.
Yeah, and Ponte Vedra last week, they were number 1 last week and dropped out of that number 1 spot. So it's imperative that Ponte Vedra wins out. They got IMG Junior Nationals tonight and Creekside next week. You could finish 8-2 with your only 2 losses to Beachside and Nice. So Ponte Vedra is still very much in play for that number 1 spot. Again, you get that number 1 seed, and that is unbelievably fortunate because you're going to host all the way throughout, provided you're district champ, which we don't know if Ponte Vedra is right now. So Ponte Vedra may not be a district champ, but that region is very, very strong. You got a Middleburg who goes from an 8 seed all the way up to a number 6 seed in 1 week, and still the potential to keep climbing, and then Beachside as well, still in that mix for district championship as well.
Here's what's crazy about 4A. Right now, St. Augustine would be the 1. If the playoffs started tonight, Booker T. Washington from Pensacola would have to come all the way over here in the 1-8 matchup, 6 hours down I-10. Now, Ed White is currently the 4. That would change if they lose to Riverside tonight, although they are leading Riverside. So Ed White is the 4. Columbia, Lake City is the 3. Riverside is not in, according to these standings, which they wouldn't be unless they win tonight.
Yeah, and we saw that on the ranking a little bit ago. They were the number 9 seed going into this week. Really, their only path in is a district championship. Yeah, the future's in your hands if you're Riverside. You can still get in. You got to come back and beat Ed White tonight. You're down 28-14. Probably not going to happen, but you got a chance still. You still got a chance.
Now, in 3A, we're loaded with local teams. Rains is clearly the 1. Yulee would be in as the 4. Rains well on their way to a district championship, but Yulee would still be in as the 4. Baker County would be in as the 6. And Bishop Kenny would be in as the 2, as another district champion. Boy, you look in that region, Justin, I mean, isn't it Rains and Bishop Kenny in the regional final?
Yeah,
that'd be a pretty big surprise.
I don't see another scenario. I mean, I think Bishop Kenny has been really good. We'll talk about them later in the show. But it's going to be Rains and Bishop Kenny, and I don't see, and I've said it from before the season, there's nobody in region that's going to stay. I mean, I could see a scenario where Rains doesn't win every game by running clock, maybe in the regional final, but I think Rains runs through everybody in that region, be it Bishop Kenny, Yulee, whomever it is. You're going to run through running clock, if not all 3 of those teams, 2 of them, and then you're going to play in the state semifinals. But it's crazy how the state rankings come out, and I know it'll be reshuffled before then, but Rains and Miami Northwestern were the 1 or the 2 and 3 seeds, so they would rank. They would play in the first round of the state semifinal. So you don't want to do that. You want to be in that. You hope Miami Northwestern is in that number 1 spot, so you kind of avoid them until the championship game. And that may help because Miami Northwestern just actually picked up a forfeit win from week 1 against Orange Lutheran, who had to forfeit that game. So Miami Northwestern went from 7-1 to 8-0.
In the 2A region, otherwise known as the Bowles Invitational, more than likely. Bowles is the 1 seed. They would play Jackson the 8 if the playoffs started today. As you said, Jackson clearly on the bubble. Baldwin would be the 4 in that region, and those are the 3 local teams from 2A that would make the state playoffs. Bradford is in Region 2 in that region, and as Justin said, there's a potential for Bowles and Bradford there in the state semifinal.
Yeah, state semifinals or even championship game, depends on how they get reshuffled. So how crazy would that be if we had an all-local state championship game? Don't think it'll happen. I think Bowles will get there. I don't know about Bradford. Their offense worries me a little bit. But I do see a scenario where both of those teams could meet in the Final Four.
And then finally in 1A, and again, loads of local teams here. University Christian would be the 1. Episcopal would be the 4. Really good year for the folks over there. Marcus Wells, the head coach of Episcopal, doing a really good job. Trinity Christian and Impact Christian would be the 3 versus 6 right now. And then Providence in as the 7. So 5 of the 8 in that region would be local schools.
Yeah, and that's, we tend to have the majority of teams in that 1A, 2A, and then even going up to that 5A. And I think it's going to be the traditional, the University Christian, Trinity Christian in that regional final. So I don't think there's any suspense there. I think it's UC, Trinity. Great seasons for Impact, Providence, but I just don't, in NFEI, I just don't see any of those teams slowing down Trinity or UC.
All right, here's what we have on the scoreboard. Ed White still up 2 touchdowns on Riverside. Again, that's a must-win game for Riverside. Reigns 42-0. We got a running clock in a district championship game. Pretty expected. Yulee, good football season for Yulee, but Reigns is just a machine. Mandarin up 14-0. To elaborate on that in the Channel 4 game of the week as Mandarin has the ball here. What a shot to the gut of Oakleaf. You drive all the way down to the 1-yard line, you punch it in, think you're down 14-7. You get a holding penalty on a quarterback sneak. Again, that's an interesting call from a ref. And then you get a field goal blocked, and now all of a sudden you're still down 14. That's a tough pill for Oakleaf to swallow.
Yeah, it's how do you let that happen? I mean, you get the push in to the end zone for a touchdown, and then, oh, by the way, you got a flag, and then you miss the field goal. I mean, talk about a crippling shot to Oakleaf, and Mandarin has marched right back down the field. And can you see a scenario if Oakleaf goes down 3 possessions at half? Can you see a scenario where they come back, and great defensive play there by Oakleaf, knocks Annis down. I'm not sure if that's a sack, but he did not get much out of that play at all. But if you're Oakleaf, you cannot afford to go down any more than you are right now. And to me, it almost reminds me of the Bowls game where you're playing well, and then Xander Edwards rips off a massive touchdown run, and you play well again, and then you have another Xander Edwards touchdown run. So Mandarin looking for a field goal here, and
Thought I heard a whistle. I don't know if there was.
Don't think any signal on that one. They could.
And we talked about Oakleaf getting in the Bowls red zone 4 times, coming away with no points. Same thing just happened here at the Corral against Mandarin.
Yeah, and especially when you're down at the 1-yard line. The difference being inside the 20 and then being inside the 3-foot line and coming away with nothing. So we'll see if Mandarin can connect on this field goal when play resumes. To add to that 14-0 lead that they have over number 5 Oakleaf. Mandarin's come back strong from the bye week. Bryson Wright with his 3rd pick 6 of the season to get that scoring started. Shonquez Foster, a short touchdown run after that to make it 14-0. And of course, the dagger for Oakleaf. You get down to the 1-yard line on 3rd down, you go in for a touchdown, and then you get called for I guess that was 4th down. You get called for a flag on that, nullifies the touchdown, and then you miss the PAT. So not the ideal start for Oakleaf as they are down 14-0 with Mandarin looking to add 3 more right here.
You mentioned must-win territory probably for Jackson tonight. Not going well for them. Baldwin 20-6 right now in the 2nd quarter. A loss for Jackson tonight, does that end their playoff hopes?
No, they're 8th right now. It helps that Gadsden County is not eligible. And there's that field goal through. It's 17-0 Mandarin right now over Oakleaf. We'll see if Oakleaf can mount anything before half. But, if Jackson loses this game, you're still in position for a 5-5 finish. And you're still in position for the playoffs. You're in the 8th spot this week. The Gadsden County's ineligible really helps you out. But right now, I think if you're Jackson, if somehow you can win out, I think you climb out of that 8th and go to a 7. I don't know if there's a scenario. Maybe if they lose out and finish 4-6, they miss the postseason. But I think Jackson is in, barring something crazy happening behind them.
Nice 29-0 over Tecoy Creek in a battle of St. Johns County. We're tied. Orange Park and Beachside 7 apiece. St. Augustine, no real surprise here, 32-0 over Ridgeview. Against St. Augustine's pretty much like Reigns, just a machine right now. Bishop Kenny 28-6 over Westside. I guess the story there is that Westside scored.
Yeah.
Because Bishop Kenny's defense has been hurting some people. Westside has found the end zone, although they still trail 28-6.
Yeah, not a surprise. Westside is limping towards a winless season. Same with Sandalwood. They're looking like they are again. Their season comes down to next week against Terry Parker in a great old school Gateway Conference clash to try and avoid 30 straight losses. Unbelievable. 30 in a row. Unbelievable.
Absolute craziness. And then one of the games of the night that we haven't talked about, it's not a district championship game, but it's two really good teams. And it's two teams that really need a win, particularly Fleming Island. They lead Middleburg 7-3. Middleburg coming off one of their best regular season victories in a long time. I was interested to see how they were going to respond after beating Beachside in the fashion that they did.
Yep.
Defensive battle right now. They trail Fleming 7-3 in the Battle of Clay County.
Yeah, and this historically has been a very lopsided rivalry. Middleburg and Fleming Island has been owned by the Golden Eagles, and you've had a great start for Middleburg. You've gotten back in the mix. You've shown you can win. They've only had one other 9-win season, and it took them 1990 in the regular season when Allen Hall was quarterback to get that 9th win. Of course, they went one and done in the playoffs. The last time I think they even had a season similar to this was back in, I think it was 03, and they drummed Palac in the first round of the playoffs. And Fleming Island has treated Middleburg poorly over the years since Fleming Island came into existence. And Fleming Island won this game 42-6 last year. Fleming Island had a lot better team last year. Sebastian Broughton, they had a really strong Trace Burney was over there. He's now at Oakleaf. A lot of the guys graduated, transferred. So Fleming Island has been a little bit down. But they beat Middleburg. They're still right back in that playoff, in that district race. They're back in the playoff race. They're that number 9 seed this week. So huge game, must win for Fleming Island. They lead this series all-time 15-2.
Yeah.
15-2. And one of those wins Middleburg had was in Fleming Island's first year of existence all the way back in the early 2000s.
Well, look, in Clay County, it's always, or at least it has been for the last decade plus, Oakleaf and Fleming.
Yeah.
And clearly Middleburg has emerged as that third team in Clay County, I think, as of late. And what a statement they could make tonight after beating Beachside last week if they were to beat Fleming. Ryan Wolf's done a really good job out there with that Bronco program.
Yeah, and the thing is getting those guys to believe. You know, Clay had an unbelievable time when Josh Hoekstra was there and played for state championship, beat John Wolford in a playoff game for the age of 74-73, reached the playoff that year, I think, as a 6-4, and went all the way to championship game before they lost to Tyson Campbell, Pat Sertan, in American Heritage in that championship game. One close, 66-8, but it really kind of showed that Clay County football had arrived in a sense. Matt Toblin was a coach at Clay and did well out there as well, but for a long time in the latter half of these mid-2010s to now, it's been Fleming Island, it's been Oakleaf, and even Oakleaf's had difficult times. You know, Jarek Chipoletti was there, did good things, had a 12-1 season, but you've just not seen that consistency across Clay County outside of those two. It's been a long time since Orange Park has been really, really good and removed from its heyday when Danny Green was there and Final Four for them. So it's been a long time since the Clays and the Orange Parks were really any kind of anything in Clay County.
Yeah, no question about it. But Middleburg, a very good year. Certainly Oakleaf having a good year. Fleming Island having a good year. All three potentially will make the state playoffs. And that brings us to Bradford, Santa Fe. And here's the interesting quirk with the Hurricane Week. Bradford is finishing up their regular season tonight.
Yep.
If they win, they're going to be a district champion. They're playing Santa Fe, and they're up 7-0. We will not see the Tornadoes again for 3 weeks. They're off next week, which is their bye. They don't have to make up a game, so they're going to be off the quote-unquote Hurricane Week, and then they're going to play in the state playoffs. So after they play tonight, you're talking 21 days off between now and the state playoffs. I guess you can get healthy, but Justin, at a certain point, when does rest turn into rust?
Yeah, it's almost like college bowl season, right?
Yeah.
You wrap up in early December, and we don't see you again until January. So yeah, it's Probably I can see scheduling a week 11 bye in a lot of scenarios. You had a long stretch to get to that point, which would, we see in Jaguars land how tough it is for teams. Last year the Jaguars, I think their bye was in week 13.
Right.
It was so difficult to play that long uninterrupted. You got injuries and confidence issues and everything you're trying to deal with. So to play 10 straight weeks for Bradford and probably went in it with a district championship, that's great. You're going to get time to rest and recover. But man, that's a long stretch to go. We saw how the Jaguars did in London. You play 7 straight weeks and you're limping towards that bye week. And I think for Bradford, there could be some rust too when you play that long and then you have a little bit of basically a 21-day break before you play again. I do think there's something to be said about that. We'll see if it helps them or hurts them come playoff time.
Yeah, they're up 7-0 again on Santa Fe right now. And quickly, we talked about the week beginning last night. We mentioned it earlier. Bartram Trail traveled down to Gainesville, lose the game 50-16. Bartram Trail is an unfamiliar territory. I believe you said if they lose next week, we're talking about maybe the worst record in the history of Bartram Trail football. There's certainly some questions going on with the coaching staff amid some issues and suspensions and whatnot. I mean, to the best of your knowledge, what's the future hold for Bartram Trail football moving forward?
It's not a good time to be a Bear, in a sense. Daryl Sutherland was a coaching legend over there. He built that program from the floor up, retired a couple years ago. Corey Johns, it's been a tough run for Corey Johns. And you had the Lathan Biddle year, who was phenomenal, and then you kind of fall off after that. You came back down to earth last year, and then you really kind of hit the floor this season. I don't think they're going to lose next week to Ribault. If you lose to Ribault, there are some serious questions as Bartram Trail. I don't think you're in a position to lose that game. You played well against St. Augustine last week. A late turnover hurt you in that game for potentially pulling an upset. But yeah, I think if you're Bartram, you got to do a hard internal check and say, hey, is what I'm doing, is what the staff doing, is it the right thing? Do we need to make changes? Do we need to, are there players not doing their part? I mean, to me, when you're Bartram and you're struggling, you got Arthur Lewis, who I thought was the best running back in the area this year, coming in. He's done nothing. He struggled to get blocks. The quarterback situation has been unsettled, and you're looking at, the harsh reality, you're under 500 last year, your worst season in program history, and this is a program that opened in 2000, has been a 2-8 season, and there's a potential to hit 2-8 if you don't win next week. Again, I think they will win against Ribault, but it's certainly kind of gut check time. Say, what are we doing? What can we do better? So I think Bartram enters the off season, and we don't even know if Corey Johns has been cleared yet. I mean, this was the Buholtz game was his last suspension day of that 3-game suspension. So he's still got to be cleared by the county and before he can come back and coach that Ribault game. So yeah, I think there's a lot of questions in the air in northern St. Johns County football.
The plot thickens in a district title game. Riverside has scored. It's Ed White 28, Riverside 20 in the third quarter. As we said, a must-win situation for Riverside. Yep. It is Friday Night Lights presented by Farah and Farah. Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. More scores coming up, more analysis of the playoffs. We're 2 weeks out from the regular season finale. We'll also have a conversation with Creekside head coach Sean McIntyre. He's a district champion. He's going to be in the postseason in a couple of weeks. A lot more to do with you till 9 o'clock, and we are certainly glad, Jacksonville, you were with us under the Friday Night Lights.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
With Justin Barney of Channel 4, the hacker Ryan Green with you under the Friday night lights. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. We mentioned 3 district championship games in the Duval County region. Ed White, 28-20 over Riverside. That's the most competitive one right now in the third quarter. You got Mandarin at the half, 17-0 over Oakleaf. Maybe a little surprising that Mandarin is up 17 at the half. Not surprising at all, Justin. Rains is going to be celebrating a district championship tonight. They lead Yulee 42-0 in the second quarter.
Whew. I think I predicted Yulee to score 6, but Rains has had some issues on special teams when they kick off, and Madison County ran 2 back on them. So maybe Yulee gets on the scoreboard that way. I don't think they're going to crack that Rains defensive front. Vikings are just unbelievable. Plus, it's senior night over there. Guys like Timothy Cole, Jatarius Brown, those guys have been playing together since Pop Warner days. So nice for the parents to be able to take in for that special season at Rains.
To update you, Ed White has just scored as well, 36-21 now, a 2-touchdown lead for Ed White over Riverside as Ed White looks to close out a district championship. Baldwin 20-6 over Jackson. We got Paxson still leading Ribault. What a win that would be for Paxson.
Yep.
More on them in just a moment as I want to talk about the Sunshine Schools. Nice 29-0 over Tecoy Creek. Beachside 7-7 with Orange Park. You lose last week to Middleburg, struggling with Orange Park. Is maybe some of the luster coming off Beachside?
Man, a little bit of a struggle with Beachside. They're used to lighten teams up through that passing game, and to be in a 7-all game against Orange Park. No disrespect to Orange Park, but Beachside is a team that was top 3 in the region up until last week's loss to Middleburg. So a little surprised that it's 7-all right now against Orange Park.
You mentioned Bishop Kenny. We're going to talk more about them in just a little bit. They lead Westside 35-6, and still a defensive battle. Second quarter, Fleming Island 7, Middleburg 3.
Yeah, not entirely surprised at that. So right now, that Middleburg game last week turned into like a unbelievable second half of that game when they really turned it on. Beachside was leading that game, not a troublesome spot, but I thought Beachside was going to pull away from them in that second quarter, and then Middleburg flipped it on in the second half. But Middleburg has been really a team this year that you questioned if they had it. They showed they did. You're going to want to see that they have it again. It wasn't just a fluke last week.
We're going to have Sean McIntyre of Creekside coming up in about 5 minutes, hopefully, district champion of the Creekside football team, their head coach. Before we get there, though, we mentioned the state playoffs. Well, for some of our schools, they begin next week in the Sunshine region. What is the official name?
It's the Sunshine State Athletic Association.
Sunshine State Athletic Association. I should know that. My son's a proud member of Christ Church Academy, and they are in the private school sector of the Sunshine State football region. And look, you got Christ Church is one, and that's the private. There's a bunch of private schools. But let's focus first on Paxson, Stanton, Fernandina Beach, and West Nassau. All 4 entered that region within the last couple of years. All 4, I think, believe it's a great move, and they're all going to the postseason.
Right, and we look at the schedule right now. So if the Sunshine State, this is with the playoff rankings as it would happen today. So these would be the matchups next week if all things hold steady. That would be West Nassau hosting Bell, Fernandina Beach hosting Franklin County, Stanton, they're playing on the road tonight against Space Coast and having some trouble, but they would be playing at Umatilla next week. Paxson hosting Lake Weir, and Bronson at Interlochen. That's in the Atlantic Division of the SSAA playoffs. And man, so many quality teams there, but you haven't been able to tell when those guys were in the FHSAA and playing in districts. So the Sunshine State has really allowed teams like West Nassau, Fernandina Beach, Stanton, Paxson to really come out of their shell and compete with teams that are on their same level. And of course, we have another division. You mentioned Christchurch. So Christchurch is in the other division, the 11-man division. We have another slide of that up there. So the SSAA is split into two divisions, and there are 23 teams in the 11-man North division. And the local teams are Christchurch, St. Joseph, Old Plank Christian, Eagles View Academy, Duval Charter, Bishop Snyder, Cedar Creek Christian, and Harvest Community. Those teams are all vying for spots in that playoffs, and the final rankings will be out this weekend, and that will set up those first-round playoff games. But Hacker, to your point, it's so good to see that these teams, there's no, in no realm could a Christchurch go and compete with a Trinity Christian, which is where it'd be matched up with, or an NFEI. You're just not built to do that. So the SSAA, we talked about it earlier this year on the Varsity 4 stream and the Friday Night Lights, that this gives teams who have smaller student bodies and maybe not as competitive as teams in the bowls as districts to go out and compete with like teams. And I think you and I talked before we came on the show, it makes sense for the Wolfsons to get in and do like Paxson did. It makes sense for the Inglewoods to do that, the Sandalwoods to do that. And
West Side, Parker.
The West Side, it makes so much sense for them to take this path. And who cares if people think it's ducking out? It makes, to me, if you're a West Nassau kid, and we've used this reference quite a few times, you're West Nassau, you're in a district with bowls. I remember talking to Ricky Armstrong quite a few times. You got a good team. You could go 7-3, but you weren't sniffing the playoffs because you were in with Reigns and bowls, and you had no chance of ever making it out of the playoffs. So making it to the playoffs. So really, really good what the SSAA has done, and I hope more teams explore that.
I saw Dixie County just got in, and they said they sent out a tweet that they've had a lot of applications. I think people are beginning to see what you and I have been talking about. Schools have seen how successful, at least here locally, we mentioned Paxton, Stanton, Fernandina Beach, West Nassau. And I wonder if the Sunshine Athletic Association at some point will have to cap it off, because there's going to be a lot of teams that probably want in based on what you and I are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Frostproof is in there. They're a state champion from the FHSAA years, beat Trinity Christian in the state championship game. But I think West Nassau can win a state championship this year. I think Paxson can win a state championship this year. I think those teams are in where they need to be. They're playing against opponents who are like them. You're smaller schools, and you're not going to compete with the Bowleses and the Creek Sides and the Bartram. You're not built to do that. And it's just so good to see that they have another alternative now.
Real quick, you mentioned NFEI as a bubble team. Boy, they're in a battle with Oak Hall right now, 16-12. How big a game is this for NFEI?
Yeah, I would stun that they're in that close of a game with them, but they're in, again, number 8 in the region. You got to finish strong. You got to win. You can't afford to lose a game to a team like Oak Hall.
It's officially on with Ed White Riverside. Riverside has scored. It's now 36-27, extra point pending in the third quarter. Both Riverside and Ed White have played a lot of really high-scoring games this year. It looks like this district championship game is going to be another one of those.
Yeah, going to be another good one. But right now we got a good guy on the phone who's already in the clubhouse, so to speak, with a district championship. Head coach Sean McIntyre of Creekside, so gracious to join us here on an off Friday night. You don't get a lot of those during the season, Coach. Thank you for checking in with Hacker and I tonight.
Appreciate you guys, man. You just put us in the same realm with Bulls a minute ago, and just proud of what we've become at Creekside High School and the work that our kids have put in. And actually, at the Ponte Vedra game, I stepped out here to chat with you fellas, but just Friday nights this time of year, I was texting my coaches before I came over here, like my body clock's telling me it's go time. So it's just that time of year. The weather's cooled down and the football's getting good.
Well, Coach, first and foremost, congratulations on a district championship. You will be in the playoffs in a couple of weeks. And certainly it was not the start that you wanted this year, but you played a ridiculous schedule for the first month. But the growth your team showed throughout the year to respond and to win some big ball games and win that district championship must have been very, very rewarding for you and your staff.
For sure, and for our kids, they're the ones who went through it. I didn't have to get tackled one time or make a tackle one time. So our schedule was created to build a team that was going to compete for a district championship and that could compete in the playoffs. And I think that we have done that. It wasn't pretty at times, for sure. There were a lot of games on our schedule that were far more competitive than maybe the score indicated. And that we made some critical mistakes early in the year. Last year we had 17 seniors who contributed on offense. We brought back one kid who contributed on offense, and he unfortunately broke his leg early in the year. And so there were a lot of growing pains on that side of the ball, but we have definitely grown, and I'm excited to see our offense move forward next week against Ponte Vedra and then into the playoffs. And then defensively, we've actually played fairly well all year. So some of those scores don't indicate that, but we've had a lot of turnovers that have led to points, kickoff returns, punt blocks, things of that nature. And so just playing good defense late in the season is going to give us a chance, I hope.
You had a lot of graduation losses. You mentioned guys who you had coming in. You have a young offensive crew this year. You graduated Sean Ashenfelder, a multi-year starter. You had a running back who was one of the best in program history who graduated. You lost guys to graduations and transfers and everything. How did you you played a tough schedule going in, you lost a few out of the gate. How did you kind of steady the sails when those guys are used to winning and they're seeing the scoreboard light up and say, man, we're not doing good. We're not upholding this Creekside legacy. We're district champs last year. We're winless right now. How do you kind of steady the sails to your guys and say, hey, we still control our own destiny? District games haven't started. Did that take a lot of sales pitch for you and your staff to say, you guys, you kind of compartmentalize that. We're still in okay shape?
Yeah, no, nobody saw the way our kids work. A long time ago, I aspired to be a Creekside football program, and the difference between a team and a program is the way that they operate year in and year out. And our kids, regardless of what happened on a previous Friday night, never wavered in their commitment to what they're doing and the work that they put in. Kids like Jackson Arl, Kyle Payton, Rowan Thompson, Aaron Satteris, those seniors they didn't let us fold in those critical, difficult moments. They continued to just push through, even though the results weren't what they wanted. In life, you're not going to always get those results that you want. You're going to have to go back to work and keep moving forward. And they did that. They didn't let the younger kids get discouraged. They continued to build them up and pick them up when they needed to. And that has paid dividends here in the back half of our season as we've started playing much better.
Coach, I remember when you were the new guy in St. Johns County at the head coaching ranks, and now all of a sudden you look around and you're definitely not the new guy anymore. You're one of the most established guys, longevity speaking. Sean McIntyre is a head coach in 2025 compared to when you took over that program at Creekside years back. How have you changed as a head coach?
Immensely, Hacker. Immensely. I've grown immensely, and sometimes you have to walk that path. I'm not the smartest guy you've ever met in your life, but I try to do right by kids and people every single day. And you learn as you go that what things, when I first took over, everything was a big deal. Everything was an emergency. And I have learned that that's not the case. You have to do what's best for kids. It may not always be what's easy, but it's what's best. And you have to make sure that people earn what they get. And when they earn it, celebrate that work. I am far more intentional in 2025 about celebrating the work of our kids, celebrating the successes, and just making sure that everybody in our program understands that it's not about me, Hacker. Like, Creekside football wouldn't be where it is. There are so many integral pieces. Our coaching staff is unbelievable. I have 26 coaches, and those guys, man, I'd lay in traffic for a lot of them. They are unbelievable people and what they inspire me to do on a daily basis. And then our kids and our parents are so supportive and committed to what we're doing. Just making sure that everybody understands that we appreciate them, and that appreciation cannot just be held internally. You have to verbalize that. You have to show that. So there's a lot of ways. Like, I've got a 9-year-old son, right? Connor was born the month I got the job, and he's out catching kickoffs before games now and running down the sideline and and he's flying the drone at practice and filming our practices, and watching his growth has been kind of like our programs. Like there's so many things that I don't even worry about anymore because my assistants take care of it. My players know that the standard is what it is, and they're going to uphold that. So I'm just so blessed to have as many people support me. Our principal, our athletic director, all the support is unwavering and awesome to be around.
So, Coach, when did you get your coaching start? What year?
2005, Justin. I was on Coach Wiles' staff as a freshman running backs coach, and I think you know how that season ended with a state championship. So I was like, I'm walking around like this is easy, and little did I know at that point how much work went into that season and the culmination of that.
Now, it's funny, I ask you that to bring up this. I'm going to throw something back to you, and you tell me if you remember this picture.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a young Sean McIntyre in that picture that you can pick out right there?
Yeah, along with a young Brian Braddock right there in the back.
Yeah.
That picture is actually hanging behind my desk in my office. Coach Wiles sent me a copy of it, and it's in my office. I look at it every single day, and just, that was a great memory. That staff, I learned so much that year about being a football coach and what that means, and I'm thankful for being Coach Wiles and his mentorship of me. It has meant a lot, and I'm a far better coach because I was on that staff for sure.
Can you believe that's been 20 years ago in Miami that picture was taken?
Yeah, I don't think the kids believe me when I tell them I've been doing this for 20 years, but I have been there. There's the proof right there.
There it is, young Sean McIntyre back in the corner, and Brian Braddock in the center behind Coach Sauls and Wiles, and Mark Shelley there, PJ Grohl, Dan Mowry, Kurt Stewart there, I think, too. A lot of good guys, a lot of good experience in that picture as well. Can you believe you're the youngest guy on staff back then, Sean?
Oh, I was young. It was a different day and age back then. There are some phenomenal men and some phenomenal coaches in that picture for sure. Those were great times. I still cherish them, and many memories are brought up about those days.
Man, great time. So thank you for joining us tonight, man. It's a quiet football Friday night for you, and you're still out there scouting and everything. You got Ponte Vedra there next week, and I know you take that seriously, but that's a great rivalry, too. You had to win that game a couple years ago to sneak into the playoffs, so Week 11 just means so much more now than it did 5 years ago.
Without a doubt, every game matters significantly. Ponte Vedra is doing a great job tonight. They're pounding IMG, and Coach Price is doing a tremendous job. So excited next Thursday. It's going to be an awesome environment. If you've never been to a game at Creekside High School, I'd highly suggest making the trip next Thursday night.
Yeah, my kids go there, and they love every week of going to the games there. Hacker says thank you as well. Sean, thanks for taking out time with us on the stream Friday night, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you guys for all you do.
Take care, Coach. Thank you.
There you go, Sean McIntyre, the head coach of Creekside. They are district champions. They will be in the playoffs. Interesting that they play 9 straight games, then a bye week, then they'll end their regular season, then another bye week because of the hurricane week, and then they'll begin their playoffs on November the 14th.
20 years ago, that picture.
It's a great staff.
Yeah, crazy.
Great
I covered that. I covered every game that year of St. Augustine. So the McIntyre, the Brian Braddocks on that staff, Jim Sauls, short story about that. St. Augustine got the state championship game in 2001, I believe, and they got down there and they played Rockledge, and I think they were up 6-0 or 6-3 at half. They ended up losing that game 38-6. And Joey Wiles, St. Augustine was strictly a running-based team, and this is back when the wing tee and everything at that time was in vogue. I mean, it was weird to see a team that passed. So Joey Wiles said, I need some help. At the time, Craig Howard was going to Nice, and there was talk maybe Craig would go to St. Augustine, but he ended up at Nice. Joey Wiles went out, got Jim Sauls out of Tallahassee, and he brought that throwing element there and really made that difference. And they absolutely whacked Sarasota Booker in that state championship game. I think 34-15. It was not even close. First and only state championship for St. Augustine. And guys like that. I mean, Sean McIntyre was young on staff there. Brian Braddock was young and on staff there. And really a bunch of legends in that picture. Dan Mowry, remember wide right?
Dan Mowry, my brother was teammates with Dan Mowry at Tallahassee Lincoln back in the day. Yeah. And the star defensive player on that team was Kevin Carter.
Yeah, okay.
Who put my brother in the hospital, hitting him in practice and knocking him unconscious. So I know all about Dan Mowry.
Dan Mowry was an unbelievable kicker at Florida State. But, man, he has been a darn good kicking coach in St. Johns County. I mean, there was Caleb Sturgis there, Mark Sturgis, so many good kickers. Micah Kluge, I mean, Cairo Santos even played in St. Augustine, or at St. Joseph and St. Augustine. So much talent has come through there.
Ed White has gone up 44-27, probably starting to pull away from Riverside, up 17 in the third quarter. Mandarin and Oakleaf, let's head back out to the Corral. Third quarter action going on there. This is a district championship game. Again, both of these teams will likely make the playoffs, but obviously the district champion will have a higher seed, potentially more home playoff games, and Mandarin is up 17-0. You know, we just talked about Sean McIntyre, really good head coach in St. Johns County. Let's spend a moment on Toby Bullock, the head coach of Mandarin. Offensive coordinator. He was for Bobby Ramsey's staff when Mandarin won their state championship with Carson Beck. I don't know if Toby gets the credit he deserves for what he's done at Mandarin year in and year out for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a great story. So Toby Bullock was the head coach at my alma mater, Wolfson. It was really his first start as a head coach. Wolfson didn't have the greatest situation, but Toby took the job because he wanted to be a head coach. He told me a great story one time where they had headsets on the Wolfson sideline that were not working. The headsets were not working. There was no audio at all, but he just wanted the headsets so that the opposing coach,
I love it.
They knew what was going on. So he goes from that at Wolfson to now being one of the most accomplished head coaches in Northeast Florida at Mandarin High School.
We're gonna watch this next play at Oakleaf. Then we got a full screen check-in on a little bit of Toby Bullock's bios, and people don't realize Toby is a well-traveled man, and it's like Oakleaf knocking on the door, and are they in the end zone yet? Are they still going?
Hope they don't get a holding penalty again.
They are down inside the 1. Again, this has been bad territory last time for the Oakleaf Knights. So
that wide receiver's not happy with that ref right now.
So Oakleaf knocking at the door again. Oakleaf's going to have it down at the 1, and remember their tough trip down to the 1 in the first half ended with a penalty at the 1-yard line, wiping out a Jack McKissick touchdown run, and that was followed by a blocked field goal. We'll see if they can get in. I think it's third down now.
You got to get 7 here. If you don't get 7, this thing is
going to be a sneak by McKissick, and he is in the end zone this time.
Wait for the holding penalty. If there was a quarterback sneak again, but I guess they're good now. All right.
They are in for a touchdown. So Oakleaf on the scoreboard, and we are going to see if they can trim that. It's 17-6 pending this PAT, and Oakleaf with a fighting chance now here midway through the third quarter, and
score they had to have, and they got it.
They got it.
You're down 10, or presumably about to be down 10 with about 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. Still plenty of time. That was a must-score drive for Oakleaf, and they accomplished that.
Good for them to come out in the second half after going down 17-0 and leaving points on the board. And they are up, and it is good. We got a 10-point ball game at the Corral. So as we were talking about Toby Bullock, let's drop in on his bio. So Toby has been in this area quite some time. He graduated from Inglewood back in 2000, so 25 years ago. Unbelievable. Yeah. He played college football at Marshall with another good guy from this area, Jonathan Goddard Sr., who was at Ed White. Unbelievable rusher at the time, and he tragically was killed in a motorcycle crash. Toby said was one of the best teammates, best players he ever knew. Toby is coached locally at Creekside, Inglewood, First Coast, and then he landed that first head coaching job at Wolfson. Well, he wasn't really good at Wolfson. Not a lot of coaches at Wolfson had been good.
Wasn't dealt the best hand there at that time.
He was not dealt the best hand. So at Wolfson, Tom Williams was hired at Wolfson. You remember this guy?
Yes.
So he was an Ivy League football coach. An Ivy League football coach was hired at Wolfson, and I believe there was some issues with his resume, or I think he said he was like a Rhodes Scholar or something like that.
Was he the guy that was there like 3 months?
Yeah, he was not. There was something to do with academics or something like that. He's an Ivy League football coach. I think he coached at Princeton or Yale, something like that. Took the job at Wolfson. He was there for, you say, a cup of coffee in the major leagues. I think he was there for an eye blink in real time, maybe there for 2 or 3 weeks, left, just really kind of did them dirty. They hired Tinsley Talley, hired Toby Bullock as a head coach really late in the process. Toby was thrilled to get the job. I remember talking to him the day he got it. He was pumped up to get that chance and took the job and was not set up well for success there. I think he was 2-27 during his tenure there, not really good. left Wolfson, ended up going to Mandarin and doing a darn good job there. The offensive coordinator for that Mandarin State Championship team, Carson Beck, won Mr. Football. DeMario Douglas was unbelievable. He's playing in the league now. Toby coached all those guys. This is his 4th season at Mandarin. He's already led them to a state championship game as a head coach. So Toby is really, really good. He probably gets overlooked a little bit coming at after the Bobby Ramsey time, but Toby's a great offensive mind.
And one of the all-time good dudes in the area.
Such a good dude.
Great guy. Great guy.
Such a good guy. Kind of knows the hand he's been dealt from a coaching salary perspective, from the transfer portal area. And he keeps it. He reminds me in a sense of Marty Lee. Toby will always shoot straight with you. He'll always tell you the truth, whether it's sugar-coated, whether there's no political correctness to it. He'll tell you what it's like. And in today's era and dealing with people, it's nice to have that non-sanitized version of how things really are.
And you go from being dealt a very bad hand at Wolfson. Oh, there you go, bad snap. Oh, Mandarin looks like and throw it away. Nice play by the quarterback to get rid of that. That could have been disastrous. You go from being dealt a very bad hand at Wolfson if you're Toby Bullock. He's been dealt, a full house, a flush at Mandarin High School. I mean, night and day, the scenarios between Wolfson and Mandarin, at least where Toby Bullock stands.
What is it, a royal straight flush or whatever the highest hand in poker you can win with. No, he's had a good thing going with guys transferring in, Bryson Wright coming in and having that success. Tremel Jones, Tremel was a guy, he was there from freshman year. Jamie French, Brody Jennings, a lot of those guys have been there, had transfers come in, but you don't apologize for that because that's the nature of the beast these days. So you're not out poaching players. Your program, your best programs recruit themselves, and I've said that since Tebow was at Nice. And kids want to go where the good players are at, the visibility are at, and Mandarin is certainly that. But there's the downside of that too. When you have all those personalities and stars and high recruits, there's a downside to having all that talent too. Expectations are exorbitant and through the roof, and it's all about kind of melding things together. He's got a good staff over there. I think Mike McIntyre is over there, James Coleman. Quite a few good football minds on that staff at Mandarin alongside Toby.
Let's get some score updates. Ed White still up 44-27 over Riverside. Baldwin 20-6 over Jackson. Mandarin now 17-7 over Oakleaf, as Oakleaf has made that a contest. Paxson I still have in front of Ribault, 14-12 in the third quarter. Rains 49-0 over Yulee. That is a running clock for the Vikings. They're about to be district champions. Fletcher, we talk about a must-win for the Senators. They're in a defensive battle right now with First Coast. Fletcher leads 10-6 at the half.
Yeah, and Fletcher's got a really good defense, especially a good pass defense. A couple guys, corners that are going to big-time college schools, and I've texted and talked with Theatric Faison quite a bit this season, and he knows what he's got to do. You got to win out, and he is pretty confident if Fletcher finishes 7-3 and wins out and finishes strong, you're going to probably reach that postseason. Otherwise, you could be on the outside looking in and possibly a Florida Invitational Tournament bracket if you miss the FHSA main bracket. So that is something to watch. But man, Fletcher, back in the day, Sandalwood was kind of the epitome, and Baker County was as well. You would go 8-2 or 7-3 and miss the playoffs. It was just remarkable. Ryan Sikowski at Baker County, I remember his times there. They won a district championship, and then they missed the playoffs 2 other times, 7-3 and 8-2. And you missed the postseason back when the district champ and runner-up went. So it can happen. You can have good seasons and not make the playoffs. Probably less likely in the scenario now with the points and more of a fair playing field, not letting district runners up in who didn't belong in anyway. But yeah, if you're Fletcher and you go 7-3, you probably should make the playoffs. You may not, though.
I want to spend some time on Verwin-Dormany in a moment. Before we get there, another a district championship game, Bradford County, Santa Fe, 14-7, Bradford in the second. Surprised it's that close?
Yeah, a little surprising. Bradford's had a couple of these games this year where it's been a little bit close in the first half. I can't remember who they played earlier this year. I'm drawing a blank on it now, but I think they won at the very end, like a 14-12 game.
Yeah.
It was closer against Leon for the blink of an eye last week. I think Bradford's problem is offensively. Can you move the ball consistently enough to win And when it gets deep in the playoffs, and they've struggled to do that against Cocoa, struggled to do that against Newberry last year, but your defense is so darn good that you continue to do that and continue to win by your defense. And I think they'll have enough strength as this game gets into the late third, fourth quarter to pull away.
We mentioned Verlin Dormany in hour number one. You know, winning is a tradition at Trinity Christian.
Yeah.
What does he have? 9 state championships. He is a legend, not only in the area, in the state of Florida, and heck, nationally. How many high school coaches have 9 state championships, particularly in a state like Florida? But it did not get off to a great start for Verlin Dormany this year. A rebuilt team, a young roster. They started 0-4. And you're thinking, wow, is this maybe the beginning of the end for Verlin? How much longer is he going to want to do this? Boy, to his credit and his staff's credit, they have come on like gangbusters in the last 6 weeks. They are district champions. They beat Tallahassee Lincoln last week. They're up big tonight on Kipbold City. And I asked Verlin, you know, it's easy to have 5-star talent and to beat everybody 50-0. What about this year, to start 0-4 and to have to work your way back in? He said it's almost as rewarding, if not a little better, to see his guys get better every single week. Really a nice story developing at Trinity Christian this year.
Yeah, and you know they're up right now 48-0 on Kipbold City at halftime in that game, so running clock at Trinity Christian against Kipbold City. But let's look at this slide real quick of kind of the bio of Verlin Dormany. And Trinity Christian, for as much success as it's had, it did not start out strong this year. It started out 0-3, won a game, lost again. Okay, I think we don't have the Verlin bio, but struggle. I mean, Trinity Christian did not get out to a Trinity-like start this season, and that's just what happens. And we talked about earlier, young team last year, still made the state semifinals. You had coaching turnover. You had a coach die last year, Willie Green, who'd been there for quite some time. So you're talking all these changes. Gus Scott was over there coordinating, and here we got the Verlin script up. You know, you had all these changes. You started 0-3, and you lose the game, and then you win, and then boom, you're back in track. You won 4 straight games. You're going to probably finish this season at 6-4. So just like you did last year, and you struggled against better teams, older teams last year. And then you kind of get things figured out against the teams that you should beat, the Kipbold Cities of the world, the Providence, those guys. You should win those games. But Trinity doesn't want to just win. They're used to beating the Bowleses of the world. They're used to beating the Rainses and the Ed Whites and those guys. So getting beat by those teams is significantly different. I mean, Trinity Christian's loss to Ed White this year in the opener was the first time Ed White has ever beaten Trinity Christian. So yeah, it's a little bit different this year for Trinity Christian, but with all the changes, with different coordinators and coaches moving on, and yeah, there is a different feel at Trinity Christian. But somehow with Verlin's, he's an icon, coaching legend. There's so few guys left in this profession that have the resume or the standing or the skills that Verlin Dormany has. I mean, Joey Wiles was one, Corky Rogers was one, and you just don't have those elite guys anymore. He's led Trinity Christian to all 9 state championships. Corky Rogers has 10, which is the state record. Will Verlin ever get there? I know he'd love to get there before calling it a career, and I always joke with him, when is it gonna be? When's it gonna be? He'd love to coach his grandson Wade, in high school before calling it a career. And it would be cool. I know his wife Marlene's probably saying, hey, maybe, you know, come on and spend time with those grandkids. But he is a living legend. You got to give props to that, because those guys don't grow on trees. And you know, you and I were blessed to cover Corky Rogers during his time. He's no longer with us, but guys like that, those guys are a thing of the past. And it's just to be able to witness their presence on the fields on Friday or in practice. I mean, it's really a treat for the players and also the people like us to get to cover them.
2 quick follow-ups on Verlin. Number 1, if there is a Mount Rushmore for high school coaches in Northeast Florida, Corky Rogers, Verlin Dormany, right? I think Joey Wiles.
Maybe Wiles. I mean, Mike Pittman from Swanee.
Mike Pittman had 4 straight titles. My stepbrother played for him.
Robbie Pruitt, I think, would be the other one.
Yeah.
So you're talking, I mean, Pruitt was a high school Hall of Famer in Florida in his 30s before he went up to Georgia. And we talked about earlier this year, the only coach in high school football history to win 200 games in 2 states. He's got 200 wins in Florida, 209 in Georgia. He's coaching at Williston now. He coached, University Christian, and Union County to like 7 state championships, so 4 at UC and 3 at Union County. State record winning streak, Robbie Pruitt at Union County, 52 games, still stands. So yeah, Mount Rushmore is hard to top, but to me, it's probably, as much as I love Daryl Sutherland and Joey Wiles and those guys, Joey's got 1 state title, Daryl none.
You'd have to, Marty Lee would be in that conversation of that tier. I think Kevin Sullivan would be in that conversation of that tier as well. Again, you're talking about top 10, but if you're talking about like high school royalty in the area, it's Corky and it's Verlin. If Verlin gets to 10 to tie Corky, will he be thought of in the same regard?
I don't think so. I think Corky is so revered, and it's not, that's no knock on Verlin at all. I mean, if you ask Verlin Dormy about Corky, he gives, and I can almost, oh God, you know,
he doesn't even like talking about it.
He gets exasperated when you even mention him in the same breath. So Corky Rogers is elite. Now I bring this up all the time when people talk about Corky. And years ago, when the Orlando Sentinel did a statewide poll on the best football coaches in the state of Florida, Don Shula, whoever else was in there. You know who won that poll? Corky Rogers. High school football coach won a vote of Don Shula, everybody else. So that shows you how revered it is. Not only did Corky win those championships, he's doing it at Bowles, whose academic standards to get those smart football players in there, the academics that you have to maintain to go to Bowles, and to do that, he's had elite talent during his time, Corky did. Not as much toward the tail end of the career, but the talent Corky Rogers had during his heyday, and to meld them, and that staff too that Corky had, Belger, and I mean, so many guys at Bowles that you could just name and rattle off. Kevin Fagan was there for a good bit of time, Wayne Belger, just so many guys. But that staff at Bowles, what they did for a period of from '91 until 2016 was just absolutely remarkable. 10 state championships. Even when you have the talent, the Riley Skinners and the Rocky Rosses and the Dexter Carters, that you still got to coach those guys. You still got to put all those guys together. Sharon Dorsey, Sam Matthews, Travis Carroll, Des White. I mean, Robert Pollard was there for a bit. To still have that, have all that talent and put it together with all those coaching minds. We'll never see another Corky Rogers.
And quickly, I would be personally remiss if I didn't mention, you know, in that top 10 tiers we're talking about, got to go through what for David Penland.
Yeah,
right? He's got numerous state championship rings on his finger as well. So you got to mention David Penland of University Christian.
Yeah, when you talk about state coaches and what puts them in that hole, I mean, Joey Wiles won 200 games in his coaching, or over 200 games in his coaching career. When you look at the guy, what's the real separator? I mean, Danny Green at Columbia and then Orange Park. The Chippolettis at Fleming Island, you build that program up. Joey Wiles took over a program at St. Augustine, which was down. I think he missed the playoffs in his first year and never missed again, and retired in 2015. So when you talk about that, the state championships are the separator for me. And you got the Pruitts, multiple state championships. I mean, Danny Green, Dormany, Corky Rogers, Mike Pittman at 20. And then I think you get into that second cut, the Joey Wiles, the Marty Lees. You know, the thing that hurts the Marty's conversation is Daryl Sutherland conversation. Excellent man, unbelievable leader of men. You'd want your, as you say, you'd want your daughter to marry somebody like Daryl Sutherland because just that quality of a human being. But when you're talking Mount Rushmore and top 10s, you don't have those state championships to show, and that really kind of hurts the cases of those credentials to me.
And we haven't forgot our buddy Bobby Ramsey either.
Bobby
at Mandarin,
and coached Bobby Ramsey. There's so many guys. John Street at University Christian. There's been so many guys that have come through this area and left their mark. And you could talk to people from those generations and they would say, that's the best coach ever. And I don't care about a state championship. So it's all subjective. But to me, if you're compiling a true top 10 list of coaching icons and Mount Rushmore, to me, it's got to start with those 4 guys.
Let's quickly talk about some under-the-radar teams, Justin. Now, we spend a lot of time talking about St. Augustine, Rains, Bowles, and with good reason. You're Super 10, the best teams in the area. There are some teams that maybe, and I'm guilty of this as anybody, maybe we haven't talked enough about this year, and I want to start by giving some of my thoughts. Christ Church Academy, we'll get to them in a moment, Bishop Kenny, and Baldwin. And Bishop Kenny, by the way, 63-6, they lead West Side at the half. I think we've had a record on 92.5 FM this year for running clocks that Bishop Kenny has had. They've put some numbers on people. It'll be interesting to see how they do in the state playoffs. But what about Bishop Kenny? I mean, they lost a heartbreaker to Beachside. The Bowls game, look, they got beat pretty handily by Bowls, and you somehow maybe started forgetting about them. They haven't lost in over a month. They are destroying people right now, playing their best football of the year.
And again, this is another really good coach. Tim Kraus he was at Bishop Kenny when he was an OC there during the Walford times, built his own program when he went over to Nice and led them and then back to Bishop Kenny. It's a guy who knows offense. He knows how to coach. I've mentioned this before on the show. When I do coach polls, surveys during the beginning of the year, I ask who's some of the best coaches. And to me, it shows something about what coaches think of their colleagues when you get multiple votes for that same coach. Anybody can vote for themselves, but when you get multiple votes for that same coach, the Braddocks, the McIntyres, the Tim Kraus is in that conversation too, is a guy who gets multiple votes from his coaching contemporaries as saying, hey, he's the best coach in the area. So I think at Bishop Kenny, you're always going to be hamstrung because you're drawing a certain kid for the student body. You're not going to get the kids that the Mandarins are. You're going to get a certain student there, and you got to work with those kids, and you don't have the biggest student population to draw from. You got to be a darn good coach, and Tim has shown time and again, beat Bowls for the first time since 1977 a couple years ago to win a district championship, 14-13. So when you mention one of the best coaches in the area, Tim Kraus, certainly in that mix.
Want to give some love to Christ Church as well. My buddy Justin Sermon, the head coach over there, Travis Hodge, the defensive coordinator. I spoke with Travis earlier today. Young football team, an ascending football team, planning a brand new football facility on campus out there that's going to be absolutely gorgeous. There's a lot of positive things going on. Made the playoffs last year, lost a lot of guys, lost a lot of seniors last year. To their credit, and they're basically playing Ironman football. They only have about a roster of 30 or 35. They're 6-3, likely to be 7-3 after tonight. Going to be back in the playoffs for a second straight year. Really solid job of football coaching by both Sermon and Travis Hodge over there at Christ Church Academy.
Yeah, Sermon came from University Christian. Tough for him to leave there. He's going to be a UC guy at heart. And we got Oakleaf banging away again and
making this a game. Are they in? They are.
They are in. So we have got a good one brewing at the corral. Oakleaf gets it right now to within 17-13. Jack Crazy Legs McKissick getting it done with the short yardage sneaks tonight. Would have been 3 rushing touchdowns for him had that first one not gotten taken off the board. And pinned in this PAT, we're going to have a field goal game in our Varsity 4 game of the week. The district championship game at Mandarin. Oakleaf and Jack McKissick have just cut this down to a 1-possession game.
Needless to say, Christopher Floyd did some solid work there in the halftime locker room.
Yeah, you've scored twice now in 5 minutes. And pinning this PAT, well, it's...
Refs have to get involved a little bit, Justin. It's kind of part of it out there tonight.
Yeah, and for our Reigns Yulee game, just got an update from our photog out there. TJ Cole, the reigning offensive player of the year, is done for the night. His senior night is over on the football field after Reigns has posted a 49-donut score over Yulee. TJ with the headset on at the graveyard, probably talking to his replacement, the young quarterback coming up through the system that will take the reins after TJ and his senior guys graduate. Senior night at the graveyard, so cool to see those Vikings who've been there from the beginning going out with a win. And still waiting on this Oakleaf PAT.
Like
are they going for 2 now?
Yeah, looks like they are.
So it looks
I guess like they got a field goal blocked already, so I guess they figure the better chance is to go for 2, and they know they're going to need points to beat Mandarin.
Are we going to see another McKissick sneak? Or with Mandarin stacking the center of that line, this would make it 17-15. Now we're going back, you're probably going to kick the PAT now after going back. So Mandarin gives you free yardage, and then you put it down at the 1, and Oakleaf gives it right back. So they're trotting the kicker back out there. Looks like it's now going to be back to a field goal game if this conversion goes through. So good one at the corral, though, Hacker.
Yeah, again, this was a statement opportunity for Oakleaf, who went to the final 8 of their classification last year. Did not play well in their other big-time matchup against Bowles this year. Certainly making a much better showing for themselves tonight against a very good Mandarin team. And regardless of what happens here on the PAT, it'll be anybody's game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and to me, Oakleaf, we have another flag.
Well, this is some good stuff right here.
Delay a game here. So we've seen 3 penalties in the last 3 plays. We've got a Manor penalty, an Oakleaf penalty, and now another Oakleaf penalty. This one a delay a game.
Christopher Foy pulling his hair out on the Oakleaf sideline right now.
Oh,
it's pretty close.
So it's maybe the longest we've ever had to wait for PAT in the history.
This is the most built-up PAT in the history of the Friday Night Lights, presented by Farrah and Farrah, and I'm happy to be experiencing this.
Yeah, hey, hopefully we'll get this PAT through, and whatever happens, no flag here, please.
Heck, it's turned into like a 29-yard field goal at this point.
And we have got it through finally after 3 penalties and some steady camera work from our photog out there. We have a decision. The PAT is good. 17-14, Mandarin leads, but Oakleaf scored 14 unanswered points, 2:38 left to go in the third quarter.
Yeah, but I once again just wanted to give a little love. We mentioned Bishop Kenny. Christchurch, again, looking for their 7th victory tonight. And then Baldwin is a team you and I have spoke a little bit about. 2 losses on the year. They scored 97 points in those 2 games and lost. They've won every other one. They're going to be in the postseason. Bishop Kenny will be in the postseason. And Christchurch will also be in the postseason.
Yeah, and good for that. So a lot of those teams we don't see much too often. They get swarmed up by the Bowles and the Oakleafs and the Mandarins. And you listed your under-the-radar teams. So for me, my under-the-radar teams at North Florida Educational Institute, often referred to as NFEI. They're doing good this year. 4-4 for the Eagles. They're in that number 8 spot in the region, and they have pulled ahead of Gainesville Oak Hall tonight. So they're on pace. They could finish 6-4. And this team is coached by former Ed White star, former Clemson star, I believe, Jamal Fudge. And
D-Webb's on that staff.
D-Webb is on that staff as well, and they are 4-4. Could get to 5-4 the win tonight. Really good kid. I want to shout out on this team. He's an 8th grade quarterback, Braylon Brown, undersized kid, but man, he is winging it this season. He has played really, really good football, and in NFEI last year, not a team that was really memorable for the right reasons. And they are doing something good this year under Jamal Fudge, really building something over there at NFEI. St. Joseph, team down in St. Johns County, not too far from St. Augustine. Those 2 teams combined 16-0. 16-0. So St. Joseph 8-0. They're leading Interlochen right now, trying to make up for their last regular season loss was to Interlochen last year that ended a perfect start. So St. Joseph is in that Sunshine State Athletic Association, another team probably a contender to play for a state championship this year in the 11-man division. And then, of course, Ed White, they're going to probably nail down a district championship. And I call them an under-the-radar team because this is still a really young team. They have guys on that team like Nick Roberson, really good player, Julian Holt, really good player. Your quarterback, King Boylston, underclassman. King Mercer, underclassman. Rontrez Lloyd, underclassman. You have a lot of guys on this team who are not yet seniors, and at 6-2, they really could be 8-0 as well. 2 losses by a combined 6 points over at Ed White. Lawrence Johnson's done a really good job this season with that team.
52-33, Ed White leads Riverside. They're about to be celebrating a district championship in a matter of moments. He is Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. This is the Friday Night Lights presented by Farrah and Farrah. We'll come back, give you one more scoreboard update on a district championship Friday night here in Northeast Florida. We'll also set the scene for what's going on the TV side tonight and on the radio side tonight. Jacksonville, we're glad you're with us under the Friday Night Lights presented by Farrah and Farrah.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
With Justin Barney of Channel 4, the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. Justin, looking at this scoreboard, one thing is apparent. It's either blowout city or it's nail-biting time, and there is not a lot of gray area. Raines 58-0 over Yulee. Raines is about to be a district champion. Ed White 52-33 over Riverside. Ed White is about to be a district champion. We talk about a big game tonight for Jackson. Well, Baldwin's all over them, 34-6. Again, Baldwin, I mentioned them as one of my under-the-radar teams. Another impressive showing. Couple of games already final. Trinity Christian, a 48-0 winner tonight at a running clock over Kip Bold City.
No surprise there. Trinity is getting into that playoff mode, and again, you could finish 6-4 and end up in the state semifinals again. You'll forget about that difficult start. And Baldwin, you know, you got a big game against Ed White next week in a really, really good Week 11 clash that could do wonders for both of those teams' playoff metric standings for the FHSA. So Baldwin could finish 8-2. Ed White could finish 8-2. That is a really good game in Week 11.
Beachside has taken a 14-7 lead over Orange Park. Big game for Beachside. After losing last week, you want to win this one tonight.
Yeah, and it's surprising to me that Beachside is struggling so much these last 6 quarters of football. Orange Park is not a team you should be in a one-score game with in Week 10 of the high school football season. If Beachside loses that game, you hand the district championship to Ponte Vedra in that scenario. So Middleburg can't win a district championship if Beachside loses another game. So an Orange Park win would gift wrap that to Ponte Vedra. Ponte Vedra's winning tonight, so a little surprising for Beachside.
University Christian 8-0 over Providence. We mentioned that's another district championship game implications. Lake City Columbia 14-0 over Clay. Columbia and Bowles next week. What a game that should be to finish up the regular season.
Yeah, and that's a Friday night game. We have a lot of Thursday night games. We'll talk about that in a minute, but a lot of Thursday night games. But I think the headliner on Friday, a lot of Friday night games have actually moved up to Thursday night just in the last week. So that Bowles Columbia game, though, to me, really the best and one of the only quality games of Week 11 that are not counting the SSAA playoffs because those brackets are not out yet.
Let's head back out to Mandarin High School, the Channel 4 game of the week, Mandarin and Oakleaf. It was Mandarin 17-0 at the half. It's been all Oakleaf in the third quarter, a couple of touchdowns to make it 17-14. Again, though, every time we go here, the referees are having a conversation about where they're going for dinner and what's going to happen at the football watch party this weekend. But I believe it is still 17-14 Mandarin. Concerning for the Mustangs, because after the first, I'd say, 18 minutes of this game, it's pretty much been all Oakleaf. And let's not forget, Oakleaf had the ball at the Mandarin 1, punched it in for a touchdown. Early on, it got called back due to a holding penalty. They ended up not scoring on that drive. You could make the argument Oakleaf is outplaying Mandarin right now.
Yeah, and Mandarin only has one offensive touchdown. The other touchdown for Mandarin was a pick 6 by Bryson Wright. So Mandarin's offense, only 7 points tonight. You have the field goal as well, but so 10 offensive points for Mandarin. And Fareed Coleman having a really good game, continuing his game from last week. No touchdowns for Fareed Coleman. 13 carries, 116 yards at the end of the third quarter for the big running back from Oakleaf. And to me, it's been Oakleaf's defense has really kind of held this game in check after going down 17-0 in there. So interesting kind of tale of two halves.
Nice is in this region as well. How would you assess 1, 2, and 3 right now? Close game here when you factor Nice in. 3 really good teams in 6A in our area.
Yeah, and it's going to be another situation where I think we could see a Mandarin Oakleaf rematch in the playoffs pretty quickly. I think you're going to see a Nice versus Mandarin or a Nice versus Oakleaf collision in the playoffs. They met in the second round last year. Oakleaf waxed Nice in the second round of the playoffs last season. And it's standing in the way as the gatekeeper, of course, Buchholz. I think it's going to be tough for one of our local teams to get out of that region. Region 1-6A is so competitive. Oakleaf and Mandarin, of course, in that same district, but they're also in the same playoff region. So I think you're going to have to see that opponent again in as little as really two weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. So very tough region. I think those are 3 of our best teams. I mean, they're 3 of my top 5, 6 teams in the Super 10, and one of those teams may not even get past the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, 3 really good teams in 6A. We'll see what ultimately happens, but a big part of that is what happens at the Corral tonight between Mandarin and Oakleaf. We'll keep you updated. Also, not surprised Fleming Island's beating Middleburg. I'm surprised it's this much of a defensive battle. Late in the third quarter, I still have 7-3 Fleming and Middleburg. 2 good offenses that just aren't getting anything going right now.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Middleburg just a field goal after scoring 37 last week against Beachside, but Fleming Island has got a really good defense. I know offensively they graduated a lot, lost Trace Burney, area's leading receiver, to transfer. But Jarius Rogers, really, really good football player. One of the best edges in the area. Sebastian Cruz, a really good safety. So Fleming Island, while they've given up a little bit on offense in terms of you start some green guys, they have got a really competent, very good defense.
Quickly, Bishop Kenny's up 63-6 on West Side. My alma mater, Wolfson, is playing a district game against Bowles. I don't have a score on that, but I can imagine what's going on.
I don't know if you need one.
On San Jose Boulevard. Why? I mean, look, that goes into the conversation of West Side, Wolfson, Inglewood, Parker, Sandalwood, getting into the Sunshine State Athletic Association. Wolfson should not be playing Bowles.
No,
West Side should not be playing Bishop Kenny. What fun is it for West Side to go out there and lose 63-6 and you're not even in the third quarter yet?
It's bad, and I think the administrations or however this has come to fruition, I think Duval County, the schools, they need to come to the West Side and the Inglewoods and the Sandalwoods and say, hey, let's have a hard look at the athletic situation we're in, because we cannot compete against teams. I mean, Sandalwood is on the verge of losing 30 consecutive games. Now, Sandalwood's been better this year, scoring more points, but you're not even competitive in a lot of these games. And as long as you're having to play the Ranges of the world, you're not going to be competitive. And you see on the flip side what going into the SSAA has done for a Paxson, for a Stanton. You got Paxson forfeited out of the playoffs last year after a fight in a game it was winning. Paxson had a chance to play for a state championship last year. They had to forfeit, so Fernandina got the free pass in there. Paxson can compete in the SSAA. It can win a state championship in the SSAA. It's not going to win if it's in a district with the Ranges and the Rebolts of the world. You just are not going to compete. Your student body, you don't have the same players. You've got to look at something else. The Sandalwoods, when Bob Withrow and Frankie Franklin and Adam Geis and DeMarcus Walker, Rusty Smith, Parker Bame, Maurice Wells, those Sandalwood days are long gone. Yeah. Those aren't coming back. So to me, it makes sense to look at and explore what the Fernandina Beaches and the West Nassaus and the Stantons and the Frostproofs have done. You're on a level playing field. And who's to say that a Sandalwood, if you turn it back around and go 8-2 or win a state championship, and I know there's still probably something to be said, like Sandalwood's a 7A program. Why in the world would you consider? I think you need to consider if you're a West Side, if you're an Inglewood, which is winless, West Side, which is winless, a Wolfson,
Parker,
a Wolfson, which is good, but should be nowhere near a district with Bowles and Baldwin. You should not. It's not fair to the players, not fair to the coaches, who you have 0.0 chance of reaching the postseason. And I think it explores, kick the tires on swallowing your pride, saying, hey, we're getting out of the FHA playoff system, we're going to go to the SSA. Who cares if you think it makes you look bad? You think Wilson players would rather play Paxson and Stanton and Fernandina and West Nassau and have a chance?
Well, I think, and you had the same situation where people were giving West Nassau and Fernandina kind of the weird look when they did it. Nobody's looking at it now.
Yeah,
because they're loving life, that they're competing in the postseason. They could make a deep postseason run. I think it's great, and I think more, like we said, Dixie County just entered the Sunshine State Athletic Association, and they tweeted out, that's like, I think, Team 22 that has entered. They're getting applications left and right from teams that want to do this.
You want to have, and I'm reminded of a conversation I had with JU's former athletic director and Donnie Horner, and they were exploring getting rid of football and stuff, and he said, we wanted kids to have the campus experience of playing football. And, you know, you weren't going to compete against you weren't going to ever be a team that was going to go and bang with a Clemson or something. Oh, Mandarin.
Oh,
We have got something, maybe a turnover. A pick six. Wow, Jack McKissick, second pick six of the game. And this is a huge turning point for the Mandarin Mustangs after struggling on offense. And that is huge for the Mandarin Mustangs after being up just 17-14. That is Kyrie Wilson, a transfer from Christchurch, by the way.
I know all about Kyrie.
Who is a very, very good running back. Mandarin's got a lot of players playing two ways, but that is a killer pick six for Jack McKissick. That's his second pick six of the game.
You know who the cousin of Kyrie Wilson is?
Who is that?
A man named Derrick Henry.
Wow, how about that? So
I had no idea. We had him in studio last year, and he's like, yeah, my cousins taught me a lot about football. We said, who's your cousin? He said, Derrick Henry. We go, huh, that's very interesting.
He knows a little bit about football. So
Yeah.
funny story, Kyrie tried to transfer to Gadsden County in the offseason. Of course, Gadsden County had all kinds of issues with paperwork and transfers across the program. They were ultimately suspended from the playoffs, and they were a state runner-up last year that knocked Bowls out of the playoffs last year. So Kyrie came back. He is now at Mandarin, not only a good running back, but a darn good safety too, as we just saw from that pick six. Second pick six of the game for that Mandarin defense. Bryson Wright's third of the season, got him on the board first, and Kyrie Wilson's pick six right there puts him up 24-14. That could be a ball game.
What a gut punch for Oakleaf. 17-14, you're driving, pick six. Now it's 24-14. That'll be tough to recover. All right, some housekeeping as we begin to wrap things up for Week 10 under the Friday Night Lights. Next week, in light of Florida, Georgia, and Halloween to an extent, but mainly because Florida, Georgia, and they need more security downtown, Thursday night games all over Northeast Florida, which means Justin Barney and myself will be right back here at the Channel 4 studios next Thursday night, just in a little Thursday Night Lights beginning at 7 o'clock.
And it happens to be our last stream of the regular season, so it's crazy. But we did move our game of the week, so we actually have a new game of the week coming to you next Thursday night. Mandarin and St. Augustine. So we get Mandarin in back-to-back weeks. We initially wanted this game to be shown, and we wanted this as our game of the week initially when the schedule came out, but it was a Thursday night game, and we still had quite a few games to pick from on Friday. Well, a lot of those games from Friday have since been moved up, including Middleburg, North Marion, Beachside, Nice. A lot of games that were originally on Friday night are now on Thursday night. So we're giving you a Mandarin and St. Augustine clash, the #1 Yellow Jackets, the #4 Mustangs coming to you in our Varsity 4 game of the week. We'll have an abbreviated Varsity 4 highlight show next Thursday night. So only a handful of games on Friday night that are even in the area, but Mandarin and St. Augustine could be an 8-1 Mandarin against a 9-0 St. Augustine, an excellent way to kind of put a bow on the regular season and in our Friday Night Lights on 4+ streaming show, Hacker.
Absolutely fantastic game next week. Can't wait for that next Thursday. Quickly, what do you guys have coming up on Channel 4 the remainder of the night?
Got a lot of highlights. We have shooters all around the area. Alessandra, Kyle, Jamal, plus our shooters, Chris Smith, Carla. We have everybody out tonight shooting games, so we'll have our full show coming to you at 10:30 right here on News4Jax.com, as well as Channel 4 if you're watching TV.
And I will head over to the radio station at 1010XL. We'll have the Friday Night Lights radio version beginning, based on this Bishop Kenny score, in about 25 minutes or so. We'll have victorious head coaches all over Northeast Florida, and we do hope you join us both on Channel 4 TV and on 1010XL radio. Justin, enjoyed it as always. 10 weeks down, one more regular season week to go.
And I cannot believe it's blink and it's over. We're talking about playoffs. We'll have a pretty good idea of who's in the playoffs, who's out of the playoffs after kind of heading into next week. When the playoff rankings come out on Tuesday, we'll have a pretty good idea of maybe some of those first-round matchups we can talk about next Thursday.
Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. Thank you to the great folks at Farah & Farah for bringing you Friday Night Lights on 4+. Have a terrific football weekend, and we'll see you right back here next Thursday night.